In today's video, we are going to take a closer look at the OnePlus Nord N100. I have been using this phone exclusively now for a bit more than 2 weeks. And I think I have a pretty good idea about the good and the bad things with the phone. I am W2Best and I make in-depth gear reviews and tutorials. And if you like this kind of content, it would be super nice to see you as a subscriber to the channel. I make a lot of tech videos on a regular basis. And if you want to communicate with me, you can do so either here in the comment section below or on Instagram, where I'm also at W2Best. If you want to buy this phone, you can find links to buy it in the description below. I bought this phone a bit randomly because I've been using the Samsung Galaxy S8 for a very long time, about 3.5 years. Then when the OnePlus Nord N100 was released a few weeks ago, I didn't know that much about the current state of the smartphone market. I've been so much into laptops and other laptop related gear that I basically completely ignored the smartphone market for 3.5 years since I bought my last phone. So I kind of randomly bought this one and then realized that I knew I had bought a cheap phone, but I didn't really realize how cheap some parts of it actually was in terms of component and choices they have made in what to leave out and what to put in and so on. I realized after checking some reviews online that this phone is pretty much being ridiculed because of how bad the specification is. There's been very few smartphones released over the past few years, especially from OnePlus, that holds a Snapdragon 460 CPU. And that, together with a 720p screen, so not a full HD screen, and 4GB of RAM and 64GB of maximum storage, makes this maybe not that much of a powerful package. But I started realizing when I bought it and when I started using it that there is one thing that is probably quite good with it. And it is that this is the kind of smartphone that you would buy if you really don't want to use your smartphone. Like, you have a screen that is bad enough to not make you want to use the screen. And you have a camera that is bad enough to not make you use the camera and stay in the moment instead. So if you can have that kind of a minimalist, sort of digital minimalism well-being approach to having a OnePlus Nord N100, it can probably be a pretty good phone. It surely is a cheap phone at €200 or $200 or £200, depending on what market and region you are in. But let's be a little bit more serious and talk about the actual use cases of the phone that I have had and what I think is good or decent with the phone and what is bad, and come to some conclusions. The specifications of this phone are the following. It comes with a Snapdragon 460 processor, a 5000 mAh battery. It weighs 188 grams. It is a 4G phone, so it's not 5G enabled. It has dual SIM slot or one SIM card and one memory card for extending the built-in memory of 64GB. It has 4GB RAM memory. The screen is 6.52 inches and has a resolution of 1600 by 720 pixels. It has a fingerprint reader on the back, together with a triple camera setup and one selfie camera as a punch hole in the front. Let's begin by checking the outsides of the phone. The front of the phone is obviously mainly covered with the 6.5-inch screen, and it's 720p, so it's not a very high resolution screen. This is mainly visible if you watch a video in this orientation. So when the video is not covering that much of the screen, you really see that this is not a very high resolution screen. But for watching in this mode, I think that it really holds an okay standard. The front-facing camera has a punch hole and it's a decent camera. On the left-hand side, you only have the SIM card tray together with the volume rocker up and down. In the bottom, you have a dual speaker setup, which actually sounds decent. together with a USB-C port and a 3.5mm headphone jack. The 3.5mm headphone jack was one of the things that made me interested in buying this phone, because I wasn't ready to get rid of my wired headphones yet. On the right hand side you have the power button, and on the back here, as you can see, you have the fingerprint reader right there, together with the triple camera setup and a LED flash for lighting up your subject. The build quality is really nothing special. The chassis is plastic, and you can really feel that it's a plastic chassis. However, what that means is that it's not that slippery. So when you hold it in your hand, it actually feels like it's not gonna fall away, which is a very good thing with the phone. And with many of the glass phones, you just feel that the phone is gonna slip out of your hand any second when you're using it. So there are pluses and minuses, but it definitely doesn't feel as premium as a phone that would be covered in glass. I have been using this as my main device now for a few weeks, and I have to say that given how much the phone was ridiculed in other reviews and videos, I think it's not that bad. It's relatively snappy when you're around in menus, and pair that with the 90Hz screen, I actually get a pretty smooth experience quite often when using the phone. However, it's not completely fault-free. When you are multitasking, for example listening to music and performing some other task, watching a video and doing something else, speaking on the phone while starting to do something else, then this phone is really not capable to keep up. Snapdragon 460 is a very basic chip, so that's where it lacks in any kind of multitasking situation. But for example, one thing I have been used to with slower CPUs before is that the fingerprint reader is really not snappy and it's not starting up quickly enough. But as you can see here, the fingerprint unlock is pretty snappy. And it's never been a problem for me during these weeks that the fingerprint reader has been too slow. Let's cover the main positive points I have felt while using this phone. You can't really cover positive points with this phone without talking about the battery life. It has been really good to use this phone with the 5000 mAh battery, together with the low resolution screen and the a bit lower power CPU that it uses. As you can see there, it's 32 hours since I charged the phone, and I have used it for 8 hours and 7 minutes since then. And I am still at about 17% battery. The most obvious positive point except the battery life is of course the price. 200 euros is an amazing price for a smartphone today. However, I think there are similarly priced phones that are better offerings with more substantial feature sets than the OnePlus Nord N100. The overall Android experience, navigating in the menus, and the software of Oxygen OS that just adds a tiny bit of extra stuff onto the stock Android experience has been really good. Google Home is something that I have actually missed because I've been on Samsung before, and Bixby is not at all as nice as the Google Home experience. Audio quality in general has been pretty good, both from the 3.5mm headphone jack that I'm very happy is included, but also from the dual speakers here on the bottom side. Listen to this sample while ramping it up to full volume.
Like this kind of content, it would be super nice to see you as a subscriber to the channel. That gives me a ton of motivation to bring out new content moving forward. If you want to communicate with me, you can do so either in the comments below.
It's loud but not that bassy, so if you really want to listen to a lot of music, maybe this isn't the best phone, but it gets loud enough for speakerphone calls, etc. The selfie camera also has a pretty decent experience. I'm not much of a selfie taker, but the few times I've used it, I actually enjoyed the quality of the pictures. Let's move over to some of the negative points of the phone. The first negative point for me personally, that was mainly an issue in the beginning, was the size. I have been using the Samsung Galaxy S8, which has a considerably smaller screen than this guy, and this one is a bit too big to be able to use one-handed. I really can't reach up top, and you have to start moving the phone around in your hand to be able to reach the different parts of the screen. When I'm not used to this, I found it really annoying in the beginning, and I just thought 6.5 inches is a bit too large for me to use in a smartphone. However, I did get used to it more and more over time, so it feels a bit better right now, but still I would prefer a smaller screen. Anything around 6 inches I think would be ideal. I also don't think there are that many pros to having the larger screen, especially not the way that I use my phone. There's really no difference to watching a video in 6 inches or 6.5 inches. There's no real advantage to playing a game in half an inch larger size either, or look at photos. So I really prefer a phone that is more pocketable than this guy. However, the main bad part with this phone is the main camera, or actually the whole triple camera setup in the back. It's just so bad that I really don't even want to use the phone for taking pictures at all. And I've used my Samsung phone a lot for taking photos on the go and really enjoyed that experience. And I thought that every phone on the market now would be pretty decent when it comes to the camera experience. Here is a video example of the regular camera, so the main camera of the OnePlus Nord N100. As you can see, even though the weather is kind of crap today and it's not very bright outside, this is also not a very exciting camera experience. And here is a little selfie test of the selfie camera on the front, which I, to be honest, think is slightly better than the camera on the back. But as you can see, it still has a pretty big trouble to nail the focus on my face here. Yeah, I personally don't get these cameras. Like, they are too bad to actually work for what you would intend to use them for. And it doesn't seem to matter that much how I move around. It's still not making it any better of an experience. Here you have an example of the video quality from my office with very dim light in the evening. So this is with indoor light from there. And as you can see, the video is pretty grainy, and it's definitely not a quality image that I would be using for anything of production value. I actually have to go back probably 5 phones to find a worse camera experience, and it's just really not that fun. As you can see on the sample images I've been displaying here on the screen, it's really not able to bring out any kind of color or any kind of details or sharpness in the photos. And I was even trying when I was at a cafe yesterday to take some pictures and then hard edit the pictures using Snapseed. But I couldn't make that happen either. It's like the photos don't store enough information or enough details to be able to actually edit them and make them into a usable photo. And when I say usable, I'm not even talking about publishing them on social media here. I'm talking about taking a picture like a snapshot and sending to a friend. I think this is not a good enough camera to even be able to do that, and I really expect to be able to do something like that on a smartphone. I haven't used the ultra-wide angle lens or the macro lens that much. I tried them out in the beginning and realized that they are so bad that they are basically not a usable experience, and then kind of forgot about them. I think the main thing that disturbs me with this camera is that it gets incredibly grainy. And it doesn't even have to be dark outside. You still get a very grainy result. And if you zoom in a little bit to your pictures, you can see every single grain. It's like it's bumping up the ISO to super high levels and therefore making the pictures basically unusable. Since I started filming this review, OnePlus released a new version of the One UI. And this went live just today, which will be the same day as the video goes live. Here you have a video sample of the video quality after this update went live. And this was supposed to improve both on video and image quality. And here are a few still images that has been taken with the new firmware, so you can see the difference. I think there is a slight difference to the pictures I took before, but not a big one. There has been some debate online whether the screen has 90 Hz or not. And as you can see here, it's very possible to choose 90 Hz refresh rate on the screen. However, I think that if I get to choose between having a Full HD screen or a 720p screen with 90 Hz refresh rate, I would definitely choose going with a Full HD screen. So this is not my favorite screen setup, although it has been fun playing around with 90 Hz and see the difference between 90 and 60 Hz. Since this is a video shot in 25 FPS, it will be hard for me to show you the difference in refresh rate, because the FPS count is gonna be too low for it. The fact that the phone only comes with 4 GB of RAM makes it harder to do multitasking. And I've especially experienced this when I've been speaking on the phone and then trying to do some other things at the same time. This is a major negative thing for me, even though I'm not doing that much multitasking on the phone. Since it's a cheaper phone and a lower specification, it also doesn't come with NFC and it doesn't come with wireless charging or any kind of waterproof or dustproof rating. This is a Geekbench 5 test, a benchmark to see how strong the CPU of the phone is. I was curious to see if the phone would get hot at all when running this kind of benchmark, since laptops sometimes can become quite hot when you're stress testing them. Right now I can feel no difference at all, it's just completely normal in terms of temperature. My OnePlus Nord N100 scored a single core score of 249 and a multi-core score of 1163 in Geekbench 5 on Android. So this is not very powerful, but also this is really not meant to be a powerful phone. But how does this translate to real-world use of some more powerful applications? I don't know much about gaming on phones, but I installed Asphalt 9 to just have a look at how a gaming experience would be on such a weak phone as this one is compared to the competition. I would say in every way that this is a pretty playable experience, and maybe that is because the screen is only 720p, so the game can run in a low resolution, and therefore it's not really bothering that it is such a weak CPU. This gaming experience has been just fine for me. I mean, you judge for yourself how much gaming you need in a phone and how advanced it has to be, but for the tiny bit of games that I would play on a phone, this would definitely be sufficient, even though the components are a bit weaker. Last but not least, let's try out the Wi-Fi speeds. We get a download speed of 31.33 megabits and an upload speed of 37.23 megabits. This is a bit slower than what I get on my laptops, but it's still a pretty decent result for Wi-Fi speed with this kind of connection that I have here. Let's conclude this review. The OnePlus Nord N100 is a very cheap phone indeed, but it has come to a market that holds a bunch of different cheap offerings, and it can't really live up to the competition. Even if you stay in the same price range, you can find several offerings from Poco and Xiaomi that are a bit better when it comes to specifications. And if you step up a little bit in price, for example, you have the Pixel 4a, which is not available on all markets, but where it is available, I think it really holds a lot of value for its $349 price tag. Personally for me, the size of the phone in combination with the really bad camera experience make this phone not the perfect choice. And I will actually be ordering a Pixel 4a and try this out for the next weeks to come and see if that will be the phone for me for the next few years. That is it for my review of the OnePlus Nord N100. As you can probably tell from my review content, I'm not that much of a fan of the phone, and I will definitely not be using it for a very long time as my main device. I went ahead and ordered a Google Pixel 4a to replace this guy because I think it's, for several reasons, not the kind of phone that I want to use for several years. And I'm really into this idea of buying a piece of technology that I'm able to use for many years to come. If you have any other questions about the OnePlus Nord N100, please ask them in the comments below and I will get back to you as quickly as possible. I'm W2Best, I make in-depth gear reviews and tutorials, and I will see you in the next video. Have a really nice day. Bye bye.